Yo, what's cracking everyone? Ericship 111 here. So when it comes to the Forza Horizon series, there's no denying just how impressive the car list has become. With over 900 vehicles in their current installment, the sheer scale is massive. But with that level of quantity, there's a small trade-off, and that's attention to detail. Now, for the most part, many of the cars in the Horizon series look fantastic, and to Playground Games and Turn 10's credit, it does look like Forza Horizon 6 is finally addressing some of the worst looking car models from past titles. However, there are still several cars that have slipped through the cracks, and no, I'm not talking about major issues like completely incorrect proportions like the R32 Mark IV Golf or the Vauxhall GTO being visibly wrong. I'm talking about smaller, more subtle details within cars that simply aren't correct. A perfect example is the 2023 Porsche 911 GT3 RS. When it was first introduced into Horizon 5, it featured the wrong 911 silhouette in the infotainment system and even had wheel caps using an RS badge straight from a Ford Focus. Now, fortunately, these inaccuracies were patched fairly quickly, but not every car has been so lucky. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at several cars that have carried inaccurate details across multiple Forza titles, and if they do return in Forza Horizon 6, perhaps both Playground Games and Turn 10 could look into making them as accurate as possible. Beginning with the 2011 Volkswagen Scirocco R. First introduced in Forza Motorsport 4, this car features multiple visual customization options, including two different rear bumpers, one from ABT and another from Volkswagen themselves. Now, pay close attention to the exhaust placement on each of these aftermarket rear bumpers, because from Forza Horizon 2 onwards, when the Horizon series transitioned to next-gen hardware, these exhaust positions were mistakenly swapped. As a result, rear bumper option 1 now has sections of the bumper clipping directly through the exhaust, while rear bumper option 2 features an exhaust hanger that serves no purpose at all. For the time being, we don't know whether the Scirocco R will return in Forza Horizon 6. However, if the developers do decide to feature this vehicle, then this small yet long-standing mistake that has existed in the Horizon series for over a decade deserves to be corrected. Next, we have the 2017 Ford Focus RS. At first glance, you might be thinking, Eric, what's actually wrong with the Focus RS? And honestly, there isn't much except for one small detail hiding in plain sight. Look at the bottom of the steering wheel. Do you see it now? Yep, the wheel is badged as a Focus ST and not an RS. Unfortunately, this has been around ever since the RS was first introduced back in Forza Horizon 3, and it has quietly carried over to each Horizon title since. And while I fully understand this isn't a game-changing problem, it's exactly the kind of detail-oriented mistake that stands out in a series which prides itself on authenticity and attention to detail. Maybe we will see it fixed if it gets featured in Forza Horizon 6. Moving on to the 2020 Koenigsegg Jesko. Now, one of the details that makes this car truly special is the self-leveling digital display mounted on the steering wheel. No matter how far you turn the wheel, the speedometer remains perfectly level thanks to its gyroscopic design. When the Jesko was first introduced into major racing titles like Forza Horizon 4, Grid and the Crew 2, this feature wasn't represented, which was understandable at the time. However, given how popular the Jesko is amongst both casual players and hardcore enthusiasts, you'd expect this detail to have been addressed in Forza Horizon 5. Unfortunately, it remained unchanged. That said, the Crew Motorfest tells a different story, as Ivory Towers actually implemented this unique feature, making the Jesko feel noticeably more authentic and true to the real car. And now that this exact same car has already been confirmed for the Forza Horizon 6 launch lineup, the question is simple: will we finally see a proper gyroscopic display in cockpit view? Now let's talk about the 1991 Honda CRX SiR. This car has been a part of the Forza series since the original Forza Motorsport back in 2005, and while I mentioned earlier that I wouldn't focus too much on overall proportions, this Japanese icon is unfortunately one of its biggest offenders. The rear is too short and upright, while the front of the car appears overly flat, and what makes this more disappointing is that this exact same car model has been carried over into almost every Forza title since. Where things become even more surprising is in the finer details. For example, because this is a JDM spec CRX, it shouldn't feature amber side markers, as those are exclusive to the US DM version. The tail light outline garnish should also be noticeably darker than the tail lights themselves, and on top of that, the factory SiR rear spoiler is nowhere to be seen. But the most frustrating issue about this car are the missing side skirt visual customizations. In the original Forza Motorsports, side skirts were available for the CRX, but in every Forza game since, they just simply vanished, making the car look awkward and unfinished whenever you decide to equip a front or rear bumper. And to make matters worse, the branding for several of these body parts have been incorrect for years too. What's labelled as a Mugen rear bumper is actually from Kaminari, while the so-called Kaminari rear bumper is in fact from Mugen. The same issue applies to the front bumper, as well as the rear wing branding also being flipped too. This CRX clearly needs some love from both Turn 10 and Playground Games, and if this car does make its way into Forza Horizon 6, I genuinely hope it receives a completely new scan with accurate proportions and properly named visual upgrades too. There's no way in the current state that this car is in should it possibly be featured in Horizon 6. Next up is the 2013 McLaren P1, the cover car for Forza Motorsport 5. Now, given that this car was introduced during the Xbox One era, it still looks impressive even in Forza Horizon 5 today. However, there's one detail that Forza has never quite gotten right, and that's the active rear wing. In nearly every Forza title, the wing remains permanently raised, whether the car is stationary, cruising slowly, or even doing a full top speed run. Now, while this behavior can be somewhat justified in the Motorsport series, where the car is often assumed to be in track mode, it makes less sense in the Horizon games. Ideally, the wing should retract at low speeds or when the car is at a standstill and then dynamically deployed based on the driving conditions. What makes this more puzzling is that the wing is already fully interactive in Forza Vista mode, so the functionality is clearly there. And interestingly, there was one Forza title that implemented a proper dynamic rear wing, and that was Forza Horizon 2 on the Xbox 360. Now that Forza Horizon 5 has introduced different driving modes for select cars, the question is whether the McLaren P1 will finally receive proper driving modes that would make the rear wing behave more realistically in Forza Horizon 6. I hope so, if the car gets announced. Moving on to the 1995 Ferrari F355 Berlinetta. Now, this specific F355 was first introduced back in Forza Motorsport 2. However, in the original Forza Motorsport, we had the 1998 GTS model. Now, when I look at the two cars back to back, I can't really tell them apart if I'm honest, and when it comes to the more recent Forza titles, it looks like the same car model has been used all throughout. One of the biggest giveaways is the roof. In all of the Forza titles, the F355 is flat, whereas its real-world counterpart is slightly rounded. But apart from the inaccurate proportions, one big detail that's wrong about the 1995 Ferrari is the fact that it features a flappy paddle gearbox. This is entirely wrong, as it should only feature a normal 6-speed manual transmission, as Ferrari didn't introduce the F1 style transmission until 1997. Now sure, this could be a matter of the developers just changing the date of the car instead, but again, for car enthusiasts, these details matter. Now, with Forza Horizon 6 featuring around 550 cars at launch, could this outdated looking Ferrari miss the cut altogether? Only time will tell. Then we have the 2004 Honda Civic Type R. Now, I've talked about this car numerous times in the past, and again, is also a car that's been in the series since the very first Forza Motorsport. And unfortunately, despite its long history in the franchise, this is also one of the clearest examples of a car model that has never been fully corrected. For instance, despite being labelled as a 2004 model, the front is directly from a pre-lifted EP3 which only existed between 2001 and 2003. However, what is correct though are the headlights, as those are accurate to the later models. So it's a bit of a mix and match. Also with the rear, and I know I sound very critical here, but given that this is a JDM EP3, the rear Honda badge above the number plate should be red, and the other Honda badge on the left shouldn't even be there. The car should also exclusively feature red Recaro seats in Championship White if this was meant to be a pre-facelifted model, but at this point, I don't know which version of the EP3 Forza is trying to depict. Again, does this change the way the car drives? No, but with Forza Horizon 6 heading to Japan, this feels like the perfect opportunity to finally give the Civic Type R a proper, accurate model instead of carrying over the same mix and match model yet again. Truth be told, the number of inaccurate details that still exist across so many cars in the Forza series is genuinely disappointing. We're in 2026 and on console, Forza is one of the biggest racing franchises in the industry and was a series that was originally built to compete directly with Gran Turismo. And while Polyphony Digital has spent years prioritizing model accuracy, often at a cost of a smaller car list in certain titles, Forza Motorsport under Turn 10 initially followed a similar philosophy, but with one major issue: very few of those cars were ever meaningfully updated. Over time, that lack of revision or care caused Forza Motorsport to fall behind to the point where the game is no longer receiving any more updates, while Gran Turismo 7 is still flourishing. Now, with the Forza Horizon series firmly established as Xbox's flagship racing title, my hope is simple: none of the legacy practices from Turn 10 continue to hold back playground games. And if Forza Horizon 6 wants to truly impress, especially with a setting as culturally important to car enthusiasts as Japan, this feels like the best time to break away from those old habits so Horizon 6 can fully live up to its potential as the best open world racing game to exist today. But anyways, what other cars would you like to see updated that has yet to be acknowledged by Forza themselves? Share them down in the comment section below, as I do read all of your comments, guys. But anyways, if you guys did enjoy today's video, please make sure to smash the thumbs up button, as it really does help me out. And of course, if you guys would like to stay up to date with everything Forza Horizon 6 related, be sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.